Thank you so much, Joyce, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to this session. We are glad to have you here, and of course, I hope you had a good week so far, and looking forward to a good weekend as well. But in between, we are here to share views, exchange ideas, and have some good time. So my name is Debashis. I'm a principal lecturer and consultant at the Institute of System Science, E-Government Leadership Center, NUS. So I'll be moderating this panel, and with me, we have three esteemed panelists with tons of experience behind them, and I just can't wait to hear from them. And I believe you are too. So we have our panelists, Mr. Alexander Lau, Ms. Pauline Tan, and Mr. Mark Lim. And I will not steal the show. I will let them introduce themselves, and then we start the discussion. So, Alex, if I would request you to take the stage and give a quick introduction of yourself.
Sure. Thanks very much. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, really great to be here. I'm Alex from PSD Innovation Lab, and what we do at the Innovation Lab is to try to bring a bit of innovative mindset into public service, and it's really to help us be more citizen-centric and also people-centric. That means for our own sort of officers delivering government services, how do we make sure that for the citizen, the experience is good, as well as for our own officers? And the three key mindsets that our lab sort of promotes is how do we be more empathetic, how do we collaborate better, and how do we experiment more to try out new ideas so that we can innovate. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Alex. Pauline? Can you unmute your mic, Pauline?
Yep. Hi. Good morning. I'm Pauline. So today I actually serve on advisory board for TVS, Motors Digital, as well as Sunway Technology. So primarily my job there is to look for technology, to work with these companies to do digital transformation. And we deal a lot with startups because we feel that a lot of the innovation is there. Now for Excabaa is the company that I set up recently, really dealing with nanotechnology. And for the last more than 3 decades, yes, I've worked in the commercial sector, ranging from logistics, shipping, aviation. And I was in the public sector, I was your colleague once. Yeah, good morning.
Great. Thank you so much, Pauline, for the introduction. And now we go over to Mark. Mark, appreciate if you could introduce yourself.
Oh, definitely. Good morning, everybody. Hi. Thanks. Really appreciate NUS-ISS for this kind invitation. I'm glad I'm able to be here to share a little bit about what we're going to, topic we're going to talk about, digitalization and digital transformation. It's actually a bit of a reunion for me coming back here because I was from government for many years. I think some of y'all may know me. If you remember me, I appreciate you can ping me after this session and we can have a catch up. So I'm now in Temasek. I'm the MD for digital technology, and recently I've also taken up cybersecurity as part of my portfolio. So what I do in Temasek is quite interesting. Actually, I run end-to-end full stack development. So from the data center to the cloud, to the hybrid cloud, to the data lake, data warehouse, all the way to the core systems, and also our, I would say, our mobile application, all the way to the business. So I work very closely with the business, particularly in the development of use cases. So as you know, Temasek is an investment company. So we are actually always looking for alpha. So for those who are not in the financial industry, alpha is something that you are always trying to get because it's the holy grail. You beat the stock market, you beat quite a lot of the other investment fund managers and private equity, right? So that's what we're looking for. So one of my work is really to help them to crunch data. So we have a big data lake today that is very exciting. We crunch a lot of data, both internal, external, and then we use that to produce different intelligence and insights that lead to successful investment. So I potentially could share some stories. Some I can't share because they are still private, confidential, but there's some public deal already announced. I probably can share a bit about how we did it using this big data platform and AI and machine learning. So that's one of the big highlight of my job. But of course, with this, it comes together with the rest of the thing. You still have to run the infra, right? You still have to run the operation and the cybersecurity. So my portfolio is actually rather quite large, but I'm enjoying myself because I always feel that this a way to do digital is to do end to end. The last thing you want is just to take the top layer, and then you're unable to be able to orchestrate the lower layer as well, because they're all together. There's no such thing as the breaking the two thing up in the concept of the two speed. So that's something that maybe I can share a bit more later as well if I have an opportunity. And last but not least, I was from GovTech before Temasek. Yeah, so yes, a lot of people say Temasek took me away from GovTech. I like to believe so. Yes. So anyway, I was in GovTech, started the GovTech Hive, which is, we also call ourselves Government Digital Services. Even before GovTech was formed, it was during IDA days. And after that, we were reorg into GovTech, and the GovTech Hive was formed after that. So a lot of my colleagues is still there, doing very cool stuff for Smart Nation and digital government. My bosses are all still there. I mean, they are awesome people, right? The chicken is always a great leader, and we always enjoy working with him. Kok Yam as well. So I'm not sure whether they are in the audience, but if they do, I do hope to catch up with them. So back to you, Debashi. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mark. To tell you frankly, Smart Nation and digital government is also very close to my heart, although I have not worked in the government per se. But at NUS, we've been working with public service officers, from across the world, literally. And it's really, really an enjoyable experience working with them. So, okay, so let's start the discussion. For the last decade or so, we've been hearing a lot about digital transformation, digitization, every company, every person that I meet, they are talking about that, right? But out of these, and needless to say that, and it's here to stay, right? I mean, we can't run away from it, and it's with us. And COVID actually proved that this really, really can help us in working through these difficult times, right? And but as we talk to various people who are really working with this digital in this digital space, there are a couple of words that come up quite frequently, and two of them most widely used, I'd say, is digitalization and digital transformation. And in my opinion, these two words are used quite interchangeably. But I would think that there is a subtle difference between the two, and probably there are some key implications of both of these in every organization and every business process. So my first question to the panelists, our first discussion point, if you will, is what really do you think is the key differences between this digitalization and digital transformation per se? And more importantly, are these two parallel activities? Are these two sequential, or what's the relationship or connection between the two? And also, does organizational maturity in terms of leadership, vision, strategy, has any role to play how you look at these two paradigms, right? So maybe I'll go over to Alex first. Alex, if you want to share your thoughts on this, over to you, Alex.
Thanks, Debashi.
Yeah.
I must caveat my point to say that I'm not a tech guy. Yeah, so I think, yes, I've also encountered a lot of sort of different types of digitalization and digital transformation projects. But what I like to think of them as is that they are actually, part of a spectrum. So it's not as if it's one or the other, but these are like different parts of one complete spectrum, and you need to sort of be part of this, in order to arrive at digital transformation, right? And digital transformation is probably the end goal that everybody needs to sort of shift towards. Yeah, but within there, and any organization, will be sort of embarking on their own sort of digital journey as different parts of this spectrum. So they may start as to digitize, and then they start to sort of get more and more of their business model changing over, and then they start to transform their entire business that sort of have a digital core as the backbone of the business, and then it sort of transforms the entire way they operate and interact with their customers. Yeah, I think that's the sort of the whole journey, the end-to-end journey. Yeah, and in there, then that's where sort of strategy and vision of the leaders become very, very important. Okay, knowing what to do, because you still have your business as usual work that you have to keep the lights on, right, while you are doing all this looking forward to transforming. So knowing actually what to transform and who are your customers that you should target first, which are the people that you should design or use to prototype your ideas and to understand, their needs. Okay, all those things are very important for the leaders to prioritize and to sort of identify, so that their teams are sort of doing the right projects that lead them towards transformation. Otherwise, you may get a lot of different digitalization projects going, okay, and then you might end up with things all not connected. They don't end up with transformation. They just end up with very disparate, even more confusing sort of projects. Yeah, so I think what's great about this digitalization and transformation topic is that recently our ex-minister Lim Swee Say, he has sort of released a couple of very interesting videos talking about it. So if anyone is interested to find out a very succinct and simple way of explaining it, watch that video.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Alex. Let me ask Mark now, because I will come to Pauline last, because Pauline has experience in both the public sector as well as commercial sector. So I think it'll be interesting to hear from her the two perspectives. But let me go over to Mark first. Mark, what's your take on this?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I think before we talk about that, I just want to maybe take a step back.
Sure.
Because I think the fundamental of this is quite crucial for understanding. I mean, I will pose a question back, maybe to you, Debashis, right? What do you think is the difference between digital and IT first?
Okay. I mean, if you ask me, digital is not IT, but IT is part of digital. In my opinion, and as I discuss and talk with various people across the world, what I understand typically is that the digital is a strategy, where IT possibly is one of the key components of that. I mean, if you will, Yeah. So digital transformation, in my opinion, probably is more targeted towards an outcome-based, service-oriented, and customer-centric or citizen-centric focus, whereas IT is just one of the, important tools that you use along the way, but there are other parts to it.
Oh, that's fantastic, man, Debashis. Thanks for bringing that up. I think you hit it right in the nail. And I think that's one of the most fundamental, before we even talk about digitalization and digital transformation, we should understand this, because in the past, I mean, even now, people are still a bit confused. They say, oh, actually, digital is just a fancy full name for IT.
Absolutely.
It's not, right? I mean, we understand that now, and you really explained it very well, man, Debashis. Thank you so much. And let me just emphasize a bit on that, right? From there, I will then try to answer the question that you just brought.
Sure.
See, I think the fundamental thing to understand was, if you look at the skill sets and the capabilities in the IT world and in the digital world, there are more skill sets and more, in fact, new roles and new capability and new jobs created because of digital. So if you understand, right, in IT world, we focus on the system. We focus on the quality of the data, and nothing wrong. Don't get me wrong. These are all very important things, right? It's about the system of integrity. You want to make sure that whatever people transact, the information is well captured and transacted properly. This is our system, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But they don't care about user experience, right? They have this thing called CI, human computer interface. That's it. And let's be honest, we have been those days before when you use IT system. Everybody say, oh, it's so difficult to use. Right now, the screen don't know which button to press and whatever, and then people get confused, right? So you need a lot of training for the user, because the systems are not designed for human. They're designed for data records. Yeah. Now, the digital world is where you have this huge change now. Why? Because this trend, global trend called consumerization of technology, where the technology front end now is no longer behind a counter, a staff and talking to a customer and keying in. They are now going straight to the mobile phone of the customer. Now you have this whole new dimension change. That's why digital become more and more important. Why? Because in the skill set, just talk about the skill set alone, apart from being an IT project manager, having a database administrator, and so on and so forth, there's a whole new skill set that is totally required now. One example is consumer psychologists, right? User experience designer. I mean, Alex is here. Alex, you yourself say that you are not a technologist, and I tell you why, but you are very important because these are the people who don't look at technology first, but they look at the human behavior, the human, how the mind works and how the brain works when you're interacting with your technology. I tell you why it's very important, because it is very competitive now. It's very cutting edge. If you now, your customer cannot go and see one of your customer service officer or your salespeople, the only way they can buy from you and transact with you is through the digital channel. So that kind of design now, the kind of whole idea of even the color scheme, the way the texts are being written, the fonts, the font size, the size of the button, how do you get them to add to cut now, and how you get them to this whole psychology, right? Is no longer IT, it's never in the IT domain. You're now in the digital domain. However, to make this thing work, you need the technology. So that's when IT and that kind of human-centric, or we call it user experience, coming together. And that is the key. And that's one of the big difference between digital and IT. And I took this opportunity to explain this because I know a lot of my colleagues didn't understand the difference. Digital is just a bigger, cooler name to call IT. It is not. And I tell you why it's so important, because once you have that, you'll realize that all the different technologies start to come in, right? You start to realize that you need to have agile. Why? Because unlike an IT project, you write a user requirement, you throw over the fence, and then somebody code it up 3 years later, give you a system, right? And everybody say it doesn't work. That's not what I asked for 3 years ago. Agile now because the customer service is so important, and the customer is always changing their mind. They're fickle-minded, right? They're always looking at the cool thing. You need to be able to now build your system fast and reliable and secure, but yet being able to be so flexible and so agile to address and still continue to capture your customer before they go to your competitor. So this is a very, very different type of mindset here. And from there, you also link on to this concept of CI/CD. How do I do continuous delivery, right? Push the code every second. If you look at Google, literally pushing thousands of code into their repo per second, man. Everybody is pushing codes, right? But how do you then make sure that it works if it doesn't work? So the whole DevSecOps come into play, right? The automated gateway to push code. And of course, with all these things, then you start to talk about hyper-personalization. How can I have one particular app, but a million people look at it, they all look at it differently because they are all unique, different customer. That's when hyper-personalization come in. That's when your data science people come in, your AI, ML, and that's when your system of intelligence come in. So if you understand where I'm coming from, I'm trying to explain that the digital is actually a bigger growth and a greater opportunity for everybody who are originally talking about only IT, and now you can see the whole world is changing. And it's not about segregation. It's not the tech people are the IT and the digital people are all the user experience designer. It's not. It's that beautiful collaboration of how they all come together and work as one. That you can make a huge difference. So with this, I will now move on to your question, right? Which is what's the difference between digitalization and digital transformation? To me, it's very simple. Digitalization is about how do you apply the digital technology, which I just mentioned, and these methods, right, to pockets and capture. And nothing wrong with that. A lot of people do that and it's quite effective. Digital transformation is actually a cultural change. It's not a technology change. Are you today become a digital native company, or are you still a traditional company that happen to have some digital channel and apply some digitalization methodology and technology? Now, to change that, right, digital transformation is not technology at all. It's totally to do with culture, vision, strategy, and mindset. And I can give some example later, if you have the opportunity. And that's how I see that's how I answer your question. Sorry, I took a long route because I thought I should take a step back and lay some foundation. I hope it's useful for everybody here. Yeah, if it's not, I'll just keep quiet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sorry.
No, respect to you.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And I think what the gist of your what you said could be like there's a transformation from inside out to a more outside in approach, where we put the customer or the citizen at the center of the universe and then work around that center of the universe and provide the best services and proactive and agile services for that particular customer or a group of customer, right, Mark?
That's right. Yeah, so you're moving the whole thing to the front with the customer. Yes. You're no longer IT back office support system.
Yes,
that's exactly how the world is moving. Yeah.
Thanks. Now, let me ask Pauline. So yes, you have worked in both the public sector as well as in the commercial. You have seen the commercial work quite a fair bit from very close quarters. Yeah. So we'd like to have your take on this, Pauline.
Yeah, so maybe let me see how to cover other aspects. Not Alex has covered almost everything. Okay, I think very strictly speaking, if you just look at digitalization, like what Alex said, it's about applying technology into existing business. So the thing about computerization, IT, and digitalization, all these terms, and at least when I was working on it with a lot of business users, they tend to look at it as, oh, it's technology, it's IT's job, it's the computer department's job. And I think that's where a lot of challenges start. And which is why I think it is great that there is a new term called transformation or digital transformation. It may be very cliche, it may be a very big term, but I think it is important because it talks really about how to transform and how to apply, whether it's IT, automation, or technology, into all aspects of business. So if you look at transformation, it's not just about putting in a computer, it's not just about building an application, but it is looking at business processes, it's understanding customers, where are the touch points, how do we do things in a very different way. And I think the beautiful thing about digitalization is in my current work today, it's not just like, say, putting in new IT system, but hey, existing machines, existing gadgets that we use every day. So when I walk onto the factory floor, how do I now apply digital transformation to make all the machines in the factory floor smarter? How do I use the data that is already churning in the machines for decades, but somehow not used? I'll take it out and then make sense of it and change the business process. And in the same way, then if I can do that, how then do I enable the workers? How do I put in new business models? How do I even turn this new digital transformation, whether I make the factory floor suddenly more intelligent, more connected, make the business workers more enabled into perhaps even new business models, and can I find new customers? So I think it's about how the business can work smarter, better in the new world, and not just automate the current. So we need to think through how to do things differently. So for example, recently I was working in one of the startups to work with the aged care. So for example, how do we apply very digital transformation to very simple things like, how do I ensure that the old folks who are staying alone at home are safe? How do I know that something has happened with because they are quite helpless? So how do I use technology in the home, or how do I even use existing gadgets, whether it is a camera, a phone, a watch, their TV, to detect and take care of the public, take care of the aged citizens. So this is transforming our living, the way we live, transforming the things that are around us. That's why this IoT, this thing on big data becomes, AI becomes very important, because suddenly you see everything coming together to make our lives better, and not just complicate it, make sure like email, well, it made our life better, but it made us work 24/7. So now, can we have gadgets? Can we have technology that will help us live better, keep us safe 24/7? So work for us now instead of us working for the technology.
Yeah, great. Yeah, in fact, Pauline, you brought up a very important point that how do we integrate the processes, right? I mean, that's with the help of technology to that common objective, right? So alignment of processes and functions are important. Unfortunately, my experience is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, still organizations struggling to integrate between functions. And that's where, the digitalization efforts, as Mark rightly mentioned, sometimes very targeted focus to the functional level and in pockets of opportunities, and doesn't integrate from end to end. And probably one of the reason is, the alignment of metrics, how we are measured, how our functions are structured in a way to deliver certain things. And I believe in many organizations, still it is very, very functionally focused and misaligned metrics across different functions. So probably that's one of the root cause of how we look at things more as an inside out way rather than outside in, right? Yeah, thanks, Mark. So this alignment, of course, the whole of government concept and all these strategies are designed to make that thing work across, I mean, from an end-to-end perspective. And I believe that's where the digital transformation comes in. And that is not easy, of course, as you realize. And all of you have pointed out that it is not an easy task. And the reason is that the human are involved in it. If it were just a robot, it would be a lot easier to do it. But humans are involved, and it's a cultural shift that we need to enable in order to make things work across functions, right? Aligning every bit of what you're doing today towards a end goal of that outcome-based approach and putting the customer, the citizen at the center of the universe. So with that in mind, as I mentioned, in my opinion, of course, it really is one of the most difficult tasks to change the culture of an organization, and from looking from a more inside out to an outside in approach, converting the whole of the organization or the government or the functions. So with that in mind, do you think, or what are some of the challenges in transforming an organization culturally that are aligned end to end? So maybe I'll ask Alex, what's your take on this? I mean, it's important, but it's also one of the most difficult things to do. So what do you think is something that can be done in order to enable that cultural shift?
That's a challenge that we are facing day to day. It's really about how do you bring a mindset that is very KPI driven in the old days, where people set KPIs and we are just driven to achieve them. Okay, to one that you have to bring people together and say, hey, maybe we have to find a common KPI across different silos, or find common sort of objectives or goals, right? And for us in government, that common objective is actually how do we sort of work with citizens in the sort of most seamless and efficient manner, right? And ideally we delight them, right, with our government services. So in order to get us there, then it's really about how do we build that empathy? How do we bring people really to the ground to understand stakeholders or citizens or whoever that we are working with? Okay, and really from their point of view, then how do they sort of interact with our services? Okay, and once we get that right, you will find that actually people understand. They all might have their own individual sort of silo of KPIs, and they may all be doing very well. Okay, but the moment they hear directly from the citizens who deal with us, they see us as one government. They don't see us as individual ministries, right? And or different agencies. Okay, and they'll find that it's very crazy for them to have to repeat themselves every time they sort of talk to a different agency. They expect things to be seamless across, and then if they are encountering a problem, they want it to be solved regardless of which agency. Right? So they are not going to be sort of shopping around for agencies to help them tackle a problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that's, once we hear that directly from citizens, then that makes it very easy for different sort of agencies to realize that individually I'm doing well, yeah, but as a group, maybe we can improve. Yeah, and once that realization comes about, right, then it makes things a lot easier. So it starts the cultural movement. That it allows people to feel that, yes, there's a higher goal that we can work together on. Okay, the working together part will, of course, involve a lot of process changes, a lot of different structures that you have to set up within the organization to make these things happen. And of course, the incentives that come with it. Okay, but that initial sort of movement, that initial sort of urge for them to move forward, okay, that's important. So that realization, yeah, then once they do that, then it's about how do we then support that journey? how do we make sure that, we build the right capabilities, we provide the right incentives, and we provide the right opportunities for people to come together and really work together.
So Alex, if I hear you correctly, so you're saying that the messaging is important and everybody must understand their role in that end objective, yes. Right? So it may be a front office function or a back office function further away from the citizens, but still they need to know how they are contributing, what they're doing, how it is kind of contributing to the ultimate citizen experience. Yes. And that message needs to be delivered. Is that, did I hear you correctly?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, excellent. Because what I understand, the further away from you are from the citizens, you tend to lose track of, how you contribute to that bigger objective. Yep. You are all the while you are looking at systems, technology, and all those things, but you still don't see how your role relates to that bigger objective, right? I think that messaging has to be clear upfront. Yes. Right, and should be a top-down approach. Yes. Right. Yep. Excellent. Thanks, Alex. Mark, do you think in your experience this cultural shift, as you have already mentioned, that would be different in a government organization or in a commercial organization, or they are basically the same, just that the strategy needs to be a little different? And what's your take on that?
That's a very good question. I think at the end of the day, it's not about the nature of the business, whether you are private sector, public sector, whether you're in financial or in manufacturing, or I think the key thing is really the culture. And the culture, actually, I always believe, and I've seen it many times, culture stems from the tone of the leadership. Okay, the tone of the leadership must first change. And then that will then flow down to the people to understand that they are really serious about being a digital native company and transforming themselves to that sense. And with this, right, and how we will further do it is that you need to remove that fake war, that fake China war between tech and business. In the past, it's always business will say, I am the owner of the business. Yep. I have an objective, I have a KPI. For example, I need to get more customer conversion. I give you an example, right? And they will then write a set of requirements and throw it over to tech. Tech, give me a system to do this. But you are just a service provider to me. I want to deliver this to them. I want to capture the market. If we remove that wall and you form a cross-functional squad and give them the common platform, I always give them common platform that they don't need to reinvent the wheel. They don't need to worry about the lower lying technology. They can just use the services, the APIs and whatever we are provide the microservices to them. And they can use that to be able to start to build the experience, not system, the experience to hit the objective, the business objective of capturing more customer based on that objective. Now, once you do that, right, you realize that the business people and the tech are no longer two separate teams. They are one team and they have one KPI, which is to capture more customer conversion. It becomes so that it's not about whether whose fault is it. There's this blame thing of, oh, it's the techie fault. The techie will say it's the business fault. They wrote their requirement wrong. The tech will say, no, the business will say, no, the tech, they didn't deliver what I want. We remove that completely. We say, you guys have only one objective, is to make these KPIs. It's not, there's no blaming. And when you realize that we remove blaming, right? Because everybody start to help each other to solve the problem. When there's a problem with the customer, we won't say, oh, it's a business problem. Everybody work together. That's when we start to rename themselves too. We stop calling them business or tech. We calling them product manager. We have UX designer. We have full stack engineers. We have subject matter experts, people who understand the customer, and they work together on a daily basis to meet their objective. Okay, it's not tech, it's not business. It's a cross-functional team that only have one objective. And I tell you the truth, I've done this many times, and it's beautiful because you realize there's no finger pointing, which is a waste of time. There's no blaming that is your fault, my fault. And you realize very interesting, a non-techie end up helping a techie to solve a problem. A techie end up helping a non-techie to solve the problem, because to them it's no longer my problem, your problem, it's our problems. And we need to solve it together. I hope I'm making sense to you.
Absolutely, Mark. And I can't agree more with that, with you. Pauline, yes, that cultural shift is important. And we have a question. I think I would request you to address that as well while you are giving your views. So one of the questions is, yes, we realize that, cultural shift is required, and the panel is of the opinion that, yeah, it definitely has to start from the top, but is some aspect of empowerment from bottom up is also required. And how do you enable that? How do you change that culture, and from a top down and bottom up approach, where do we meet, and what are some of the pitfalls of not doing it, right? So
maybe I shared an example of what
sure.
I've experienced and what I've seen from
Mhm.
top down as well as bottom up. So from top down, I mean, as the other two panelists have shared, it's about KPI. We are very KPI driven world. And it's,
Mhm.
I think we can talk about mindset, we can talk about culture, but it's going to take a while for us to get out of this KPI driven mindset. I mean, that's what we have been taught, that's what we have done for decades. So one of my CEOs did this, which I thought until today, it's a very interesting thing that he did. It's very simple, but sometimes I mean I don't really see. So for example, he wanted to do transformation.
Mhm.
And we wanted to see, so it's we have new systems, we have new processes, we have whatever. But he changed the KPI for myself and for my business lead. So
Mhm.
my business head has a KPI to increase X profit, to obviously, since I've spent so much money on my transformation, hey, where's the bottom line, right? So he has to do this, he has to create so one of his KPI, so in addition to the normal operating KPI, the CEO set transformation KPI. 3. Okay, and these 3 are applied on the business head as well as myself as the head for technology. Yep. So the same KPI, we have the same KPI, but he couched it slightly differently. So the heads obviously is dollar business,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I, as the technology person, I then have to lead my department to create X number of digital corridor.
Mhm.
I have very clear KPI on how many new customer integration I need to achieve. And so it's very clear. So I need to have stickiness. So I have X number, he has X number. So if I don't meet my numbers, he doesn't meet his numbers. If he doesn't meet his number, if he doesn't chase, if I don't chase him, both of us will lose our bonus.
Mhm.
So that kind of join at the hip kind of KPI becomes suddenly something that push both of us to work together. So we are still back in the KPI world. So it's how he transformed it. And the other thing that changed, which I think we can talk about more later, is we can talk all about transformation, KPI, but how do we enable it? So there are 2 things that change. One is how do we involve the ground? So there's obviously a lot of messaging. The CEO, it has to start from the CEO. He has to set the vision. He has to tell the people, and he has to walk the talk, right? So he has to go down, etc. And one of the most important thing that happened is how do we procure? Now, if you want to transform, you want to try new things. If we want the staff to be able to write tender specs that specifies everything to the T for something they've never seen, something you want to transform, you will never be able to buy a system, because before you buy it, it's changed.
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
you can't even spec, because whatever you spec, you don't know whether it's right. And there's no way the boss also knows. So you'll be forever going around in a circle. So how do you go about procuring? How do you allow proof of concept? How do you allow piloting? So the entire approach to procurement, to trials, to POC has to change, and it has to be in place. The other thing that took place bottom up is now, if we allow all this, you want to have this messaging, you have these KPIs. What we did is we actually allow the ground to form. I think the PSD has done it before, to actually come up with a lot of ideas. So when the team comes up, so you do a lot of roadshow, you do a lot of experimentation. So you need to put some money to your words. You have message, but if I don't put in a pot of money to say, hey, I allow POC, I allow trials, and this is the money. Now you guys come forward, and we will pick projects for you for you to participate in, and the KPIs, the targets have to allow time for it. Then you find that there's activity on the ground. People get excited. People get recognized, and you then have to emphasize a lot on cross-team kind of projects. So you create a buzz on the ground. People get excited, and then you see slowly the fire will spread. You don't have a spark. There's no fire, right?
Right.
But the spark has to be something that provides incentive. So it can't be always, oh, this is the big picture. This is good for the whole of government. But we always have to address, what is it for me? Yeah. So whether it's for me at the CEO level, at the head level, at the ground level, I think it has to be a comprehensive package when it comes to process change, when it comes to transformation. And that one, so far, I've seen it really works, and the ideas will keep coming.
Right.
So it's actually very, very interesting.
So before, if I hear you correctly, so you're saying that the culture change also automatically or kind of mandates innovation culture across the organization.
It
right?
does. It does.
I mean, it has to come.
Yeah. And the other thing that we also need to do is, we need to put in champions, and I suppose whichever department is driving the transformation has to start having the new mindset. So, for example, I think one of the examples I like to share is, for example, at the airport once we wanted to put in wheelchairs. So there are so many people who need wheelchairs nowadays to get to the plane.
Right.
And I can't. You don't have enough people to push them from the gate to the plane, etc. So the question now is, hey, how do I automate the wheelchair? How do I do it? How do I automate the process? Or how do I allow the people to get to the gate on time? So my team and I, we went to talk to the people running the wheelchair at the airport. And she said, hey, why can I put electric wheelchair? Oh, no, it's too dangerous. Oh, can I put the robot one? Cannot. What if it kills somebody? So every time we talk to them, they'll tell us 101 reasons why it cannot be done. So my first reaction is, wow, this user is so resistant. Oh, why like that? So negative. And so that was the first reaction. I think that is where the problem starts. Now, if we have that kind of mindset, I think all transformation is not going to happen, because immediately the business, the users will also see, hey, you are not very receptive. You don't understand me.
Sure.
So, but that was my first, oh, why like that?
Yeah.
So in the end, we say, okay, never mind. So for 1 week, myself and my team, we went to push wheelchair. So we went for the training and we went to push wheelchair. And after 2 days, we came to the same understanding that, hey, the user is correct. Cannot. What we say cannot. Then we start to empathize. We start to realize that, so in the end, can it be done? Yes, it can be done. We just need to understand our solution cannot be applied across Terminal 1, Terminal 2, Terminal 3. Different terminal, different challenge. So what they say is correct, but because we don't understand their business, we are unable to see the problem. And of course, I cannot move from get the robot to go from Terminal 1 to Terminal 3, but I can move within Terminal 1, for example. Yeah. Or Terminal 1 may be very crowded, but Terminal 3 has bigger space, so I can move the wheelchair. And then we came to understand that, hey, actually I can follow me wheelchair. I can have one person leading 5 wheelchairs, which is what you actually see now. So the wheelchairs follow each other. And therefore, now what happened is, instead of 5, I only have 1, or maybe 2, 1 in front, 1 behind. So we can solve the problem by understanding what exactly the situation, the problem is, and where the people's challenges really are. So the empathy, the ability to see the problem will actually help the transformation.
Thanks. Yeah. Yes. I think that's a great point. I mean, the senior management or the senior persons in the department needs to be in the shoes of the people below, and so that they can empathize with them and understand their problems. So that it makes it easier to empower them. Correct. Right? Otherwise, there's always that gap. We have a very interesting question. I think it's from one of the senior members in the audience that they say he's asking that, at the working level, it is often easier to make teams work together, right? So because you give them a target, give them a vision or a strategy, and they work. How do you enable that at a more senior level, right? Because when they are basically stretched between different projects, different objectives, and different KPIs, right? How do you make the senior management, the senior leaders in the organization to walk in or think in a cross-functional way or cross-culturally? So Mark, your experience on that, I'll just go to Mark first, see what he has to say.
Right, sure. I mean, the word higher level is quite subjective. I don't know how high you're talking about. Of course, okay. Different people have, they have different responsibility. They look after, some people look after bigger portfolio. My only one word to say is that it's called empowerment. Empower your team to do the work. You don't have to be there all the time. If you are really that senior and you're responsible for many different multiple projects and work stream, empower them. And then join them for their sprint review, join them for their retrospective to understand what they're doing, be supportive. Okay. I mean, if you tell me that you are so high level and you have so many book stream and you have to be every one of them, it seems like there's a lot of micromanagement there. I mean, I'm just reading from the text. So just empower them. The next thing is that if you are having a very, very important piece of work and you are senior and this piece of work is so important that you need to be dedicated, then I think you should then speak to your management and be dedicated to that piece of work, and you can then be in the cross-functional team. If not, you have many I have many cross-functional going on, and the best thing is I don't even know what they're doing. It's the best. Let them do whatever they need to do, right? They are the one on the ground. They're the one solving the problem, like what Pauline said. They're the one trying out the designing the problem, designing a solution for the problem on the ground, gaining the empathy, and they know better than me because I'm not there. So my job is to encourage them, empower them, listen to them, get them excited about what they're trying to do, create that strong sense of ownership that they want to solve this problem together, and not go down there and solve the problem for them. Yeah, I hope I'm able to answer that question well enough.
Yeah. Do you think senior leaders, if they have exposure to different cross-functional processes and work streams, will that potentially help?
Oh, of course. Yeah, and they do have. I mean, the leaders who are really serious about digital transformation tend to get very involved, but they can still shred across a few different cross-functional teams. I mean, that's what we're doing now back in Temasek, right? A lot of my seniors are involved, but they don't want to micromanage. The last thing you must understand, when we are there, the senior guys are there, the working level tends to be a bit more tense.
Right.
I know. You can say, oh, you can like one of them, but they don't. Come on, let's be honest about it, right? So actually, when we are not there, it's actually better for them. They're able to voice their opinion. They're able to debate over it, and they come out. Then we go in and doing the weekly stand-up, the retrospective, we go in and understand what they have come up with, and then we listen and then we encourage them. I want to bring up one point. This is very important for digital transformation. Actually, a lot of people are trying to make it very complex. They make it very scary. It's a 3-year digital transformation program, $150 million, big KPI. Actually, we have to stop this nonsense. I hope you don't mind. I tell you, so many consultants kind of tell me this. When I look at it, it's actually an IT project, and they put a big name called digital transformation on top of it, and they want to do it. It's a waterfall project. You have 3 years. They ask you for a big requirement, and then they want to churn it up for you. And 3 years later, they open up and say, "Nah, I have a system for you." And I can tell you the truth. It's just people putting, I don't want to be offensive, but it's putting lipstick on some animals and trying to tell you that it's a human being. It is not. Yeah, digital transformation is not complex. The technology is not complex. It's a cultural change. And actually, digital transformation, if you don't mind me being honest with you, it's never a project. If you use the word project, something is wrong. It's a lifestyle, man.
Absolutely.
You should be doing digital transformation every day. It is the only way to survive. Your competitor are doing it, man. Don't end up become like Blockbuster, man, against Netflix.
Right.
So we're gonna do one big platform. We're gonna do, and they're gonna do, and they die, man.
Yeah.
And Netflix do? Well, keep improving their recommendation engine, keep getting more content, and Netflix is the biggest now, right? It's a daily thing. The culture must be digital transformation. Is not a project. It's not a one-time thing, a start date, an end date, a budget, and then that's it. It's not. In fact, you're talking about KPI. I want to talk about procurement. Right? Pauline brought up a good point. I want to talk about budgeting also. The last thing you want is to have one big capex for digital transformation. Don't do that. Don't go to the board and write one big paper. I try not to do that, man. I always go for OPEX. And I tell you why, because then you have permanency in your digital transformation.
Yeah.
You're able to continuously drive that innovation and not just saying that I have a budget 3 years, I finish it off, that's it. I think a lot of people believe in that, 3-year big bang and everything, and they like to call it digital transformation. Go deep inside, I can tell you that it's not digital transformation. It's just a very, very big fat waterfall IT project.
Okay, so more of an agile mindset, take baby steps or small steps towards a bigger objective. So Alex, in your experience, I mean, you are working with multiple teams, multiple projects at the same time. How do you see the alignment between, I mean, do you think of how do I align these work teams or the culture or empower them working across multiple teams? Have you faced any challenge in that?
Yes, I think challenges definitely because like I think what the person who asked the question, you have so many things to take care of. Sometimes there might be competing sort of requirements. Yeah, and then that's where the leader has to play a very important role, is to see the forest instead of the trees, and to see actually where things connect and how things should be connecting. Right, and then to sort of make it clear for the different project teams, so that there is always that sharing of information, sharing of ideas, and connecting across, and people can understand that, hey, maybe there is something there that we can tap on that will make our idea better, or the other way around. Yeah, and having that is so I think linking it back to an earlier question about whether is it top down or bottom up. So top down, we sort of set the objectives and the vision, and then the overall like KPIs and structures. But actually, when you go to bottom up, okay, you need to sort of build the capabilities, right? So Mark talked about OPEX, right? It's really about making that capability sort of becoming part of the organization DNA, right? And then you build that so that people start to understand, what does it mean? What does it look like to empathize? How do I sort of understand my customers? How do I understand my co-workers, right? And then how do I collaborate better? What does it look like? Is it just sitting in a meeting together or just talking to one another, right? And then is it how do I experiment? And that's probably the biggest challenge in government, right? We are so worried about getting things wrong. Sometimes we don't dare to try things. Yeah, so how do we fence up some safe spaces for us to try ideas, and how to make those ideas come alive? It's not about asking people, do you like blue or red? Right? Yeah. It's really about what is it that you're really testing, and then how do we sort of go about setting up those experiments to learn from them? Yeah.
And how does it fit in the big picture? I mean, they must have the,
Yes, and that's where the job of the leader is to sort of keep linking it back, and keep seeing the overall picture and how those systems come together.
Right. Yeah. So as all good things must come to an end, this panel discussion, and one of the comments from the audience is very interesting. Thank you for that. And I believe all of you think the same way. Before, so we have about 6 minutes to go, and I would like to ask one last question to each of our panelists. That, can you share one of your experiences, a very short one, I mean, in a very short span, what worked and what didn't work, so certain things that you really think that if we all try to follow it the same way, there's a higher chance of being successful. Pauline?
Okay, maybe I share one where we actually use smart watches to send rosters and schedules. So in the past, when the plane comes in, there will be people who will need to go in and change water, put power, and clean the lava, which is the toilet. So in the past, I mean, they will be given a schedule. They have to come in every hour to collect the slip, and then they need to run to the plane when the plane comes. But then because no plane is ever punctual, you're either early or late.
Yeah.
So what we did was we used actually the smartwatch. And we send the schedule to the smartwatch.
Okay.
And so now the guy doesn't need to run around. I just use what he has. to get the schedule, and it's all and the user interface is designed with this team, so they know what to look for. So that's one, and with that, so this is a bit of digital. But what changed is IT. So we then use the watch to talk to the IT system. So that is the integration part. Now the business transformation bit is now, how do we then work with the people who are doing the rostering, the manpower allocation, to see now how do I roster people who are nearest to the plane to take the job rather than just based on a roster. Yep. Then we have to work with HR on compensation, how would I recognize the people, and but we also need to work a lot with unions and all the other people on how do I then assure the guy that, hey, I'm not tracking you, I'm taking good care of you, and so the whole thing needs to come in place. Right. So what is right is obviously there are many things that work out in the end, but what didn't go well is there's a lot of conversation, a lot of engagement that we needed to do, and trust me, it's never ever enough. So we talk to union, we talk to everybody, and even that we get complaints. Because because people get frightened, it changed the way they work. So communicate, assure. Get complaint, do again. That's what it is.
Yeah. So the change management is a big part of it.
It's a big part of it.
Okay, Mark, could you help with sharing maybe a small experience that you think is very critical for success of that project?
Okay, so I totally subscribe to what Pauline is talking about, man. It's about collaboration and communication. So I give an example, right? So we started to use data-driven investment methodology. A lot of investors doesn't like it. They feel that investment is about me, my network, my eye to see the gem, in all the whole landscape. And they pride themselves in that. They pride themselves being able to identify and close good deals that will make us a lot of money in terms of investment. So actually having a change, being data-driven is actually very challenging for them. They do feel that there are a lot of people who argue about using data and algorithm to replace investment. I think you have heard banks like JP Morgan literally replaced the whole trading floor. 2,500 traders are replaced by software engineers, and now the trading is all done by computers. So there is this fear, right? So that was the thing that I needed to work on, because wanting to bring AI and ML into an organization like Temasek that's more traditional, that usually based on personal bankers' relationship is something that is very challenging. But it is a must, because the world is changing. If you look at the PE, the VC in the US, they are no longer going by personal relationship. They are all going by data-driven approach. So one of the projects we did was very, very successful. And we did it with a very interesting team in our organization that deals with life sciences. So they actually look at investment into vaccines, into drugs, into digital health and stuff like this. So we work very closely with them as a squad, as I told you about. It's not about them throwing requirement over, it's about working together. And we develop a data-driven approach using machine learning to actually bring in information and then be able to recommend the information appropriately.
So help them along the way so that alleviate their fears, though. So it's more emotional than logical.
That is right. And it's also this concept of human and machine working together.
Right.
Not machine replacing human. And I think that turned out very well for us, because at the end of the day, we had to make very, very good investment and returns. New methods.
Got it. Thanks. I'll just quickly go over to Alex. Alex, if you could share a few pointers. We're actually running out of time, but I would love to hear from you. Quick one.
No, I won't add on too much. Just a very quick observation in terms of now what Mark said. UX is becoming a big part of all digital transformation. Is that we need to be careful also that what people learn, especially related to the digital academy. What people learn in UX, there are lots of different UX training coming up, and people actually just apply classroom training into their work. Right, without talking to real users. They assume that they just do the process and it works, right?
And they know the users very well.
And they pretend that they know the users when they actually go and they do their own card sorting and things like that.
Yes.
Right? So it's really important to always go out to talk to real users. Yeah,
Okay.
and I can't sort of emphasize that more.
Excellent. Yeah, that's an excellent point. I mean, when you're trying to work taking an outside-in approach, you need to know the outside, right? Before adopting that approach. Very good point. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, extremely great interaction, and I really thankful to you. Unfortunately, we don't have time. I think we can go on for another hour or so. It was so interesting. Thank you so much. And I'd just like to end this session with my key takeaways from this is, what I understand is, first, the entire digital transformation is basically about understanding an outcome or deciding an outcome or strategizing an outcome. What do I want to do? What do I want my customers and citizens to experience and get what service would I like to provide? And then work backwards, align the entire organization, decide the operating model, and then come to technology, what technology can help us, right? I mean, if I hear you correctly. So starting with an outcome, then the operating model, and deciding what technology could help us to, efficiently deliver that operating model towards that outcome, and aligning the whole enterprise towards that. So, I really love this interaction, and I'd like to thank all three of you for your excellent thoughts and insights and inputs. And we definitely look forward to future interaction, and I'm sure the audience enjoyed the discussion as well. Thank you all, audience, for staying with us, and have a great day and have a good weekend. Thank you so much.